name's Michael Long. I was born in Broward County, Florida. It's like the East Coast. Right now, I'm a student at Ave Maria University, going to go into my third year as soon as the summer's over. So, I was born Catholic, got all the sacraments. I'd say, as far as like reversion goes, I was pretty on track. Maybe around like early high school, late middle school. Maybe because some of the influences or maybe the media I was watching. I don't know why. I started to sort of like maybe question or doubt the faith more. And I guess that was a point in my life where I had to like make it my own. So then coincidentally, by the grace of God, probably, sophomore year, I moved to Ave Maria here. So that's 5 years ago now. Or 5 or 6. Yeah. And then I came really more close to the faith. So I started praying at the chapel more because it was really close and all my friends were good examples. I started watching a bunch of online stuff. I watched a lot of like Bible in a Year with Father Mike Schmitz, Ascension Presents, a ton of stuff. I started going to daily mass with my dad. So I think honestly, like a reversion point would probably be around like middle of my high school. So just like God's grace being really good to me. So that's how I put that. This was like more later on in my faith journey. So like super recent actually, but sort of understanding like the joy and the peace of Christ, and understanding who God is. So like what I mean by that is sort of like when I first started like trying to really get into my faith, it was all about like, locking in, sort of a little scrupulous, trying to be like, gotta go to church, gotta do this, gotta be perfect, as if we could be perfect. But then more recently, it's been more about just like being at peace and like feeling the love of God. And as far as that goes for like benefits and impact, I mean, it's just like a mental health, but also more than just like being able to be at peace, being able to have more communion with others, to be better friendships, just a happier time in general. So I think those have been like the fruits of my faith, just virtue, and then kind of like peace and more communion, just I guess a happier life. I think the importance of kind of like, you can call it like a spiritual friendship or whatever. The great thing that they do for me is like, along with being a pleasure to be around, enjoy the things I like, have a lot of fun with them, they also call me out on things and help me to grow in certain things. So like with my friend Eric, for example, I can always like, go to church with him or whatever. I'll see him in daily mass, and that's kind of encouraging. That's kind of like, hey, somebody's running alongside this race. But also just like more specifically, whenever, like, I'm always trying to grow, right? And we're all trying to grow to get to Christ. That's like virtue and things like that. So I guess just like, they'll be like, hey, Michael, as a spiritual brother in Christ, I see you do this thing over here, and I think you could like maybe do this better. It's like, maybe it's not the best. And because we have that friendship that's already grounded, then when it gets to like the level of helping each other out in the virtues, then it's, I don't know, I saw fruit in my life. I'm seeing myself become a better person because I had friends, rather than if I was trying to do it by myself. Whereas, if you want to look back before my reversion, it wasn't that radical, right? It wasn't that crazy. But my friends, they weren't doing that for me. Like, we were just like, playing video games friends, or just like I see them at school type of friends, but not necessarily that involved in my spiritual growth. So I wasn't getting that from them. And then it's just the greatest advantage to have a spiritual friend, to have like, a David and Jonathan kind of relationship. So yeah, I think a real encounter I've had with Christ is like when I go to pray at the chapel, like daily adoration or whatever, and I talk to Jesus, as if he's a real person in front of me, right? And then I feel the connection with Jesus. So that means then like the day following after that, I don't know, like I'll always be like communicating with God. So I don't know, like a real encounter with Christ is like God's my friend. So like I'll go see like some beautiful nature out here in Ave, right? And then I'll just like laugh to myself and be like, God, you really, like, you're gonna spoil me like this, So that's kind of weird, but it's like I'm talking to God as if he's just like a normal friend, and I think that's a real encounter with Jesus Christ. Is like, I know he loves me, we're close, like we're buddies, and that's real. Yeah, I think when most people like answer that question, they always talk about like a specific encounter they had at like a retreat or whatever. And I think for me, I just wasn't that kind of guy. Like, I never had that moment where like I was just like rushed with the spirit and I was really getting into the music. I've always been more of like a mellow guy in that sense. So those moments of like gratitude and things like that, yeah, it's not that deep, but yeah. So I'm the president of the pro-life club here, glory be to God. And as I've grown deeper in my faith, instead of just responding with like, I don't know, anger and despair, more like I have to have faith that God is above all this, right? That he allows every evil for some purpose that I don't know, right? So I have to be like Job in the Old Testament, right? So we're like, I can ask God, like, why do you do this? And he might not give me an answer. The answer is just trust in him, right? If I know he's good and I know he's all powerful, then there is a reason, there is a way that it all kind of ties together in the end, which is the hope and the trust you have to have in God. And then as regards like responding to it, as I've grown deeper in my faith, I've realized more that prayer actually works, and it's not just like a thing the old ladies do in church, but it's, I actually know that my prayers are answered. Like I see it in my life. I see it when I pray for my little brother or pray for a friend. I see like it all kind of worked out. So then I'm more incentivized to now, instead of despairing for the, pro-life cause when we see thousands and thousands, or for these wars when we see all these horrible things happening, to say like my prayers are actually doing something. I can actually pray for them. If you're watching this interview, still please pray for me and my family, for the university here, and for the whole world, especially in the pro-life movement, if you could. All right? Thanks.